Nobody remembered her name. To most people on the base, she was just the new cook. She arrived without ceremony, no friends, no greetings, no laughter. A slim woman in clean fatigues, carrying a duffel bag that looked too small to hold anything important. She spoke only when she had to, and even then it was short, clear, always respectful, always distant. The base was in a hot zone. People came and went, some in boxes, some just disappeared. So, no one paid attention to the woman behind the kitchen door. The younger soldiers whispered, "She's probably hiding from something. Medical discharge in disguise. I bet she's never even touched a rifle." They laughed at her quietness. They joked about her being soft. And every time, she ignored them. At 0430, she jogged the track alone. At 0500, she chopped vegetables with the precision of a machine. And by 0600, she served breakfast like it didn't matter whether anyone said thank you. The base commander barely remembered signing off on her transfer. He saw her once during a routine inspection. "Cook," he said, nodding without looking up from his clipboard. "Yes, sir," she replied. That was it. But not everyone was blind. Sergeant Major Dawson, a 24-year veteran with the scars to prove it, noticed. He saw how she never asked for help lifting 50-pound crates, how she stacked the supply shelves perfectly, how she memorized the weekly drop schedule without writing it down, and most of all, how she walked. Not like a civilian, not like a scared private. She walked like someone who'd been in places you don't talk about. One morning, he tested her, dropped a metal tray behind her, fast, loud, deliberate. She spun instantly, one hand low, the other up, a defensive stance. Then, just as fast, she returned to normal. But her eyes, they were still locked on him. The room went quiet. She didn't smile, didn't explain. She just went back to slicing carrots. Dawson said nothing. But that afternoon, he made a call to a contact at personnel. "Tell me about Ruiz," he asked. After a long pause, the reply came. "She's listed as kitchen support." "Yeah, I got that," Dawson said. "What's her real file say?" Another pause. "Classified." "Classified? For a cook? Sergeant Major, some files are sealed for a reason." Dawson hung up. He didn't laugh at her again, but others still did. Like Corporal Jensen, fresh out of training, loud and eager to impress. He shouted across the mess hall one day, "Hey, cook, you think you could pass basic again with arms like those?" Elena Ruiz didn't answer. She didn't flinch. She simply stepped away from the counter, walked over to the pull-up bar near the PT station, and started. 1, 2, 10, 20, 30, 40, 45. She dropped down, eyes expressionless, and returned to the kitchen. No words. Jensen never said another thing. By the third week, whispers began to change. Who is she really? Where'd she train? Why is her file sealed? But no one asked her directly. No one wanted to get too close. And Elena Ruiz liked it that way. Because the truth was, she wasn't there to cook. She was waiting. And when the waiting ended, so would the laughter. 3 days after the pull-up incident, the mood shifted. The jokes didn't stop, not completely. But they got quieter, less confident. Corporal Jensen still walked around like he owned the place, but he didn't look Ruiz in the eye anymore. Something about the way she carried herself now made people think twice before opening their mouths. She didn't speak often, but when she did, people listened. Short commands in the kitchen, fast decisions during supply delays. Always calm, always right. Even the lieutenant in charge of logistics started deferring to her without realizing it. She didn't ask for control. She just took it. Naturally. The base had seen combat before. IEDs, drones, hit-and-run tactics. Nothing major in recent weeks. But there was tension in the air. Everyone felt it. Late-night radio chatter had picked up. Distant gunfire once in a while. Unmarked vehicles spotted near the hills. No one said it out loud, but something was building. And Ruiz. She seemed to sense it more than anyone. She adjusted food inventory 2 weeks ahead, moved emergency supplies closer to the back exit, and requested a complete map of the utility tunnels under the compound. When asked why, she just said, "Better safe than sorry." No one argued. Sergeant Major Dawson watched her closely now. He didn't question her anymore. He respected her distance, but he had questions. One evening, he sat outside the mess hall while she cleaned the prep table. He didn't look at her, just stared ahead, then said, "You remind me of someone." She didn't reply. He went on. "Afghanistan. 2011. There was a team lead who went dark after a mission. Saved 6 men. Took the heat for intel that went bad." She kept wiping the table. Rumor was she disappeared into a non-combat role to protect her people. Her name wasn't Ruiz. He turned to her. "You that person?" She finally looked up, just for a second, then back to her work. Dawson didn't push. He stood, stretched, and said, "Kitchen's safer than Kandahar, but only just." Then he left. That night, Elena didn't sleep. She sat on her bunk, fully dressed, listening to the wind outside. There were footsteps she didn't recognize. Heavy, unsteady. Someone was on patrol who shouldn't be. She made a mental note. The next morning, she visited the armory. "Just for a routine check," she said. No one questioned it. She took note of what was missing, and what wasn't supposed to be there. An unregistered sidearm. A mismatched rifle serial number. She said nothing, just nodded, signed the form, and left. By lunch, she had memorized the updated patrol schedule and access points. She adjusted the position of fire extinguishers in the mess hall, placed a pry bar near the freezer, cleared a line of sight from the pantry window to the motor pool. It looked like organization, but it was preparation. Then came the message. Radio silence on Bravo team. They were due back by 0500. Nothing by 0700. Still nothing by 0900. Command called it a delay. Ruiz didn't believe it. She knew what silence really meant. Something was already in motion, and this base, laughing or not, wasn't ready. So she prepared. She always had. Because waiting was part of the job. Waiting for the day when everything went wrong. And when that day came, she wouldn't be in the kitchen anymore. Before she was Ruiz, she had another name. That name had been erased. Not just from records, but from memory. Only a few still remembered, and they were under orders to forget. 10 years earlier, she was part of a program that didn't officially exist. A unit without patches. Trained in everything: language, weapons, infiltration, and extraction. The kind of training that didn't stop when the mission ended. It lived in you. Changed you. Her real name had once been whispered during classified briefings. She wasn't the best at anything, but she was the one they called when failure wasn't an option. She made hard decisions fast. No fear, no doubt, and never a need for recognition. Then came Salvdara, a small operation that was never supposed to make headlines. Local warlords. A captured asset. She was sent in with a 4-man team. Infiltrate. Secure. Extract. But the intel was wrong. The asset was bait. The compound was rigged. And backup was hours too far to matter. She led her team through an exit no one else saw. 1 man down. 1 critically wounded. But 3 lives saved. And a drone camera captured her sprinting back into the burning building to destroy the data that could have started a war. She made it out. Barely. But command needed a fall. Someone to take the hit. Because the mission had been off-book. No one was supposed to be there in the first place. She took the blame. No trial. No headlines. Just silence. In exchange, she asked for one thing. A new name. A quiet place. Somewhere she could still serve, without being seen. They gave her that. And made sure no one asked questions. Until now. Bravo team was still silent. The base had been running smooth. Too smooth. She saw it in the supply logs. Too many fuel drums disappearing. Radio static on channels that weren't assigned. Small changes. Easy to overlook. Unless you'd lived through betrayal before. She'd seen it once. Back when an Afghan translator turned out to be working both sides. She remembered the exact moment it clicked. The subtle shift in his tone. The missing patch on his vest. She felt that same shift now. Something was off. And no one else could see it. She didn't report it. She didn't ask for permission. She just watched. And waited. Then, at 1,430 hours, an encrypted call came in. Only 2 people on base had access to that frequency. One of them was Ruiz. She heard 3 words. Then static. Signal blown fallback. It was Bravo team. Somehow, someone had hacked the comms. They weren't lost. They were under attack. Ruiz moved fast. She opened a locked cabinet in the back of dry storage. Inside, a case no one else knew existed. Her personal kit. Tactical vest. Sidearm. A small black notebook filled with call signs and protocols from her old life. She hadn't touched it in 5 years. But now, her hands moved without hesitation. She slipped the vest over her uniform, secured her weapon, and stepped out of the kitchen. The hallway was quiet. Too quiet. Outside, clouds rolled in over the hills. The air felt heavier. And in her gut she knew. The waiting was over. The first explosion didn't sound like an attack. It sounded like a generator failure. A deep thump followed by silence. Then the second one hit. And no one mistook it. Dust fell from the ceiling. Windows rattled. Alarms didn't go off. Because the alarms had already been disabled. Elena Ruiz didn't run. She didn't shout. She walked through the hallway like someone who had rehearsed this moment 100 times. Outside, soldiers scrambled. Some were half-dressed. Some grabbed rifles and ran in opposite directions. No orders. No coordination. Total confusion. The command tent was already smoking. Someone had hit the comms tower. No backup was coming. Elena moved past them all. Straight to the armory. The guards posted their looks shaken. "What's going on?" one asked. She didn't answer. She showed a laminated card, one they had never seen. He looked at it once, and opened the door. Inside, she walked past the wall of standard-issue rifles, went to the far back, unlocked a coded case, pulled out a suppressed carbine, custom, lightweight, pre-sighted. Her weapon, from before, from when she wasn't a cook. She checked the magazine, loaded it, slung it over her shoulder. The guards just stared. She walked out without a word. The mess hall was already half on fire. 2 soldiers were trapped under a collapsed beam. Others tried to lift it, panicked. Elena stepped in, directed them to shift the weight at the center. The beam rolled just enough. She pulled the injured out, by their vests. Then told them where to drag the wounded. North end of the motor pool, behind the water tanks. Safe cover. They listened. Didn't ask how she knew. Didn't have time. By now, mortars were hitting closer. But something wasn't right. This wasn't random shelling. This was coordinated. They weren't trying to destroy the base. They were trying to isolate it. Take it, piece by piece. And someone on the inside had helped them. She made her way toward the west wall, where the SEAL team's last signal came from. The air was thick with smoke. Shouts. Gunfire. Then silence. At the base of the wall, she found them. 3 SEALs. 1 wounded. 2 covering him. Pale. Exhausted. Their comms were dead. "Who the hell are you?" one asked. She looked at them, then said quietly, "Who's in command?" The nearest SEAL looked around, then at her. "You are." That was all she needed. She motioned to the alley between the supply depot and storage hangar. "Fallback point is compromised. We go east. Low. Quiet. No open ground." They followed. No hesitation. No questions. Because in the middle of the chaos, Elena Ruiz didn't hesitate. She didn't panic. She didn't even flinch. She gave direction like she'd done it 1,000 times. Because she had. The cook was gone. What remained was the operator. And as the base burned behind her, She walked into the fire, leading warriors who no longer cared what her name used to be, only that she knew how to keep them alive. They moved like shadows, low, silent, focused. Elena led the SEALs through a narrow corridor behind the storage hangar. No one spoke. No unnecessary movement. Only the wounded man's breathing, short, tight. He was losing blood. Elena paused, reached into her vest, and pulled out a field dressing. No hesitation. She wrapped his side with the speed of someone who'd done it 100 times, in worse places, under worse fire. One of the SEALs watched her, stunned. "You're not a cook," he said quietly. She didn't answer. She just motioned forward. Behind them, the base was under siege, but not in the way soldiers trained for. This wasn't a full-scale attack. It was surgical, targeted. Key systems hit. Comms, command center, fuel supply. Every weak spot. That only happens when someone on the inside draws the map. Elena knew it. She'd seen it before. Operations that looked chaotic from a distance, but were precise at their core. She'd once written those plans. Now she was trying to survive one. They reached the access tunnel behind the old vehicle bay. The entrance was half covered with debris. Most on base didn't even know it existed, but Elena had memorized every layout the day she arrived. She cleared the opening and waved the SEALs inside. A tight crawl, pitch black. One of the men hesitated. She didn't wait. She went in first. Once inside, the tunnel felt like stepping back into another life. Cool air, dripping pipes, the smell of oil and concrete. This was her world. Tight spaces, limited time, everything depending on instinct and speed. Halfway through, she stopped. A sound. Footsteps ahead. Not rushing. Deliberate. She raised her hand. The SEALs froze. She tapped the tunnel wall twice, a silent signal. They readied their weapons. She drew her sidearm. The steps got closer. Then a flashlight beam. Too high. Too casual. Not military. Not one of theirs. Elena fired once. The beam dropped. A thud. Then silence. She crawled forward. Checked the body. 4 in gear. No insignia. Throat mic still active. She crushed it under her boot. Whoever was listening just lost one set of eyes. They reached the exit. She opened the hatch slowly. Night had fallen. Rain had started. The fire from the base glowed in the distance. Smoke rising, but not from destruction, from control. Someone wanted to send a message, but they didn't expect survivors. And they definitely didn't expect her. The SEALs regrouped near the treeline. Elena looked around. There were 4 of them now. Wounded man stable. Ammo low. Morale shaken. She knelt, pulled out a folded paper map, not digital. Old habits. She marked a .3 clicks east. An old supply checkpoint. Abandoned. Unconnected to base systems. Likely overlooked. "We regroup there," she said. "Then what?" one of them asked. She looked at the fire behind them. Then back at him. "Then we take it back." For the first time that night, one of the SEALs smiled. Just a little. Because now they weren't just running. They were following someone who didn't just want to survive. She wanted to win. And somehow, they knew she would. They moved through the dark like ghosts, slipping between shadows and the rain. The night was heavy, the kind that seemed to press down on your chest, but Elena never faltered. Every step was deliberate, every breath measured. The wounded SEAL's breathing grew steadier, a small victory in the chaos that surrounded them. She kept her weapon close, eyes scanning constantly. The terrain was unfamiliar, but her mind was sharp, recalling every training drill and past mission like a map etched into her memory. She wasn't just leading a team. She was carrying the weight of every mistake she'd made and every life she'd saved. The abandoned supply checkpoint wasn't much to look at, just a rusted chain-link fence and a couple of broken-out windows. But to Elena, it was a lifeline. It had no connection to the base's compromised systems, no electronic footprint for the enemy to track. Perfect for regrouping. "Set up perimeter," she ordered, voice low but firm. The SEALs moved quickly, checking their surroundings, watching for threats lurking in the shadows. The rain slicked the ground, making every movement treacherous, but no one complained. They were alive. For now. Elena knelt beside the wounded soldier, checking his pulse and adjusting the bandage. "You're going to be fine," she said quietly. "No promises, just facts." The others gathered around, eyes tired but alert. One of the men, young, barely more than a kid, looked at her with a mixture of respect and disbelief. "How did you survive all this, without anyone knowing who you really are?" She hesitated. The question hung heavy between them. She had been hiding for years, playing the part of the invisible cook, but those days were over. "Sometimes," she said finally, "you have to disappear to protect the people who matter. But when it counts, you show up." The rain intensified, and the distant glow of the burning base flickered like a dying ember. Elena's mind raced. They were cut off, outnumbered, and outgunned. But she had a plan. One born from years of hard lessons and unspoken sacrifices. "We can't stay here," she said. "They'll send patrols. We need to move before they find us." The SEALs nodded, gathering what little gear they had left. Elena unfolded the paper map again, tracing the route with her finger. "There's an old supply route through the valley," she explained. "Narrow, overgrown, but it leads to a hidden extraction point. If we can make it there, we might just have a chance." One of the men scoffed. "Sounds like a suicide mission." Elena looked him in the eye. "No, it's our only chance." The group moved out, slipping into the dense forest beyond the checkpoint. The rain blurred their vision and soaked their gear, but they pressed forward. Every crack of a twig, every rustle of leaves had Elena's attention. They weren't just running from an attack, they were running from betrayal. She thought about the base commander, the missing fuel drums, the strange radio chatter. Someone had orchestrated this. Someone trusted, and that meant the real enemy was closer than anyone realized. Hours passed. The wounded man faltered but held on. Elena kept him awake, talking quietly, sharing stories from missions long past, anything to keep his mind sharp. Suddenly, a movement ahead. Figures in the trees. Armed. Hostile. Elena signaled halt, her heart pounding but her face calm. She raised her weapon, ready to fight. The SEALs flanked her, weapons drawn, waiting for her lead. But instead of charging, the figures called out, "Hold! We're not your enemy." Confusion rippled through the group. Elena tightened her grip. From the shadows stepped a familiar face, another operator, believed lost months ago. "We've been tracking the attackers," he said. "You're not alone." Relief and suspicion warred within Elena. Could she trust him? Could they all trust each other? The night was far from over, and the real battle was just beginning. They emerged slowly from the shadows, their weapons lowered but eyes sharp. Elena's heart raced, every muscle tensed, ready to react to any sign of betrayal. But the man who stepped forward wasn't a threat. "Sergeant Reyes," he said quietly, voice rough with exhaustion. "I thought you were dead." Elena's breath caught. Reyes had been her partner on missions long ago, the one she'd trusted with her life. After the South Dara incident, no one had heard from him. Not a word, not even a rumor. "How did you survive?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. He shrugged, pain flashing in his eyes. "Same way you did, by disappearing. I've been gathering intel on the attack for weeks. It's worse than you think." The others exchanged glances, suspicion mixed with hope. If Reyes had been tracking the enemy, they might just have a chance. "We don't have time," he continued. "They've got men closing in on this valley. We're sitting ducks if we stay here." Elena nodded, pushing pain and fatigue aside. She had no choice but to trust him. They were all too exhausted to fight among themselves. "Tell us everything," she said. Reyes lowered his voice even further. "This attack wasn't spontaneous. It was planned from inside the command. Someone feeding the enemy intel, sabotaging defenses. Fuel supplies stolen, communications jammed. All signs point to a mole." The group tensed. The word mole, hung heavy in the damp air. Betrayal cut deeper than bullets. "Do you know who?" one SEAL asked, voice tight. Reyes shook his head. "Not yet, but I've been tracking suspicious activity in the logistics unit. Someone there has been playing both sides." Elena's mind raced. She'd suspected as much, but now she had confirmation. The enemy was closer than anyone wanted to admit. "We can't just run," she said firmly. "If they control the supply lines, they can trap us anywhere." Reyes agreed. "Exactly. That's why we need to hit them where it hurts. We take back the base, expose the mole, and cut off their support." The SEALs looked at each other, some shaking their heads. It sounded impossible, outnumbered and outgunned, with no backup coming. Elena met their eyes, steady and unyielding. "Impossible is just a word. We've survived worse. Together, we're stronger." She outlined a plan, a small, precise strike on the base's communication hub. If they could restore contact, reinforcements could arrive. Without comms, they were blind. "We move at dawn," she finished. The group settled in, but sleep was fleeting. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat. Every sound made them jump. Elena sat apart, staring at the black notebook she carried, the one filled with old call signs, tactics, and memories she thought she'd left behind. Memories of battles fought in silence, missions where trust was everything and betrayal was deadly. She thought about the team waiting for her at the base, the men trapped under rubble, the ones still fighting. She thought about the mole, the shadow in their midst, poisoning everything from the inside. And she made a silent vow. She would find them, no matter what it took. Because some battles aren't just about survival. They're about justice. And Elena Ruiz was done hiding. The first light of dawn broke through the rain-soaked trees. They moved as one, shadows slipping back toward the burning base. Every step was a promise to fight, to protect, and to lead. The silent cook was no longer silent. She was the storm coming for them all. The air was thick with smoke and tension as Elena and her small team slipped back toward the base. The early morning fog mixed with the burning remnants of the night's attack, casting eerie shadows over the cracked pavement. Every step was measured, every breath steady. They moved quietly but swiftly, knowing the enemy was still out there, watching, waiting. The weight of the mission pressed on Elena's shoulders, but she carried it like a soldier born for battle. The cook was gone. Now there was only the operator. Reaching the perimeter, Elena signaled to the team. The base was a ghost town, silent except for the crackling flames and distant moans of wounded men. No patrols, no guards. But that silence was dangerous. Too perfect. They crawled under a collapsed fence and moved toward the communication hub, a small, nondescript building tucked behind the command center. It had been the first target during the attack. Inside, the room was dark, wires torn apart, screens smashed. But the main console was intact. Elena dropped to her knees, pulling out a compact toolkit from her vest. She began reconnecting cables, bypassing damaged circuits, working with the precision of someone who had saved lives through technology and tactics alike. Behind her, the team kept watch. The wounded soldier gritted his teeth, clutching his side. Minutes passed like hours. Then a soft beep. A flicker on the screen. "Got it," Elena whispered. She tapped the radio, sending a coded signal. Static answered, then a crackling voice. "Bravo team, this is command." "Status." Her voice was calm but urgent. "We're compromised. Need immediate extraction and reinforcements. Hostile presence confirmed inside base. Possible mole in command." "Copy that," the voice replied. "Hold position. Backup en route." Elena exhaled sharply. It wasn't over, but they had a lifeline. Suddenly, footsteps echoed outside the door. "Contact," one SEAL shouted. Elena grabbed her weapon, signaling the others to cover her. The door burst open, but it wasn't enemy soldiers who stormed in. It was the unit's commander, face pale, eyes wild with fear and relief. "Elena," he gasped. "We were betrayed." But you found the truth. She didn't lower her weapon. Who? He swallowed hard. Lieutenant Marquez. The room froze. Marquez, a trusted officer, second in command. Elena, you have to move. He's already alerted his men. They're coming for us. There was no time to argue. Elena signaled the team. They bolted through the back exit, sprinting toward the extraction point Reyes had mentioned. Gunfire erupted behind them, sharp and deadly. Elena's training took over. She fired shots that forced pursuers to duck and scatter. The wounded SEAL leaned on her, every step a test of will. The forest swallowed their tracks. The extraction point was just ahead. A helicopter's whirling blades sliced through the morning fog. Elena raised her hand, signaling their position. The team climbed aboard, panting and battered but alive. As the helicopter lifted, Elena looked down at the burning base, a symbol of betrayal and survival. She thought about the silent cook who had walked out of the flames, leading a SEAL unit against impossible odds. And she knew this was just the beginning. Because in war, the fiercest battles are fought not just with guns, but with trust, courage, and the will to stand when everyone else falls. Elena Ruiz had done all that, and the world was about to hear her story.